Weapons used during World War One by Bryson Horne. First, when you think of the World War One, you don't usually think about technology advancements, but surprisingly, there were numerous weapons used during World War One that were very advanced. The presentation will cover a few of those. For the first slide I have here are the listening technologies. Listening technologies were used by the UK, Germany, and France. These are some pictures that I found that were the type of listening technologies used during World War One. So, to start with, science and militaries had been going together, such as how British, Germany, and French developed listening technologies during the First World War, like I had already explained in my PowerPoint. Listening technologies included radar and other tools used by the naval branches of each country, as shown in these pictures. Technology also increased knowledge of ballistics and effectively increased artillery on the Western Front. With machine guns and other advanced firing capabilities, science was a major factor in advancements in World War One, which surprised me. The next slide I have are the chemical weapons that were used during World War One that also played a big role during World War One. These are just some simple pictures of the chemical weapons used during World War One and how explosive and how smoky and those type of things that it made. So the next thing I would like to talk about is these chemical weapons and how they played a role in the First World War. Chemical weapons were the first large-scale weapons used to produce mass destruction during the First World War, as shown in these pictures. From mustard gas to tear gas to chlorine gas, chemists played a role in learning how gases would affect soldiers in different ways. A lot of historians now call the First World War the Chemist War because of all the scientific and mobilization effects during the war. I also think that if it wasn't for military personnel figuring out how to use chemicals with their weapons, then I think that all of these wars, including the First World War, would be a whole lot different. The next slide I have for my PowerPoint is the first aid technologies. It's pretty simple. You have the different types of first aid kits and whatnot, what they kind of contained that they used during the World War. Next, I would like to discuss this first aid equipment used during the First World War. And this technology or equipment helped save lives of the soldiers. In December of 1913, medical officers were appointed to adapt new U.S. Army equipment to the needs of the hospital corps. One of the improvements was a pouch developed by the hospital corps that was used to carry first aid equipment, as shown in this picture. As ironic as it seems, the first weapon developed and used in the First World War was a first aid kit. What makes this seem ironic is because that the first weapon developed wasn't even a weapon, it was the first aid kit. The next slide on my PowerPoint will be discussing telegraph technologies. The telegraph technologies were used throughout these three different countries that I have on my PowerPoint. And these are also some pictures that can go along with it, how the telegraph was kind of like a phone type looking deal and whatnot. So next, I would like to talk about how Denmark was a neutral hub of telegraph communications across Northern Europe. In addition, the lines that connected Denmark to Sweden and Norway were used to evade monitoring by state personnel, as illustrated by these pictures. Also, the Telegraph Directory issued a steady stream of censorship instructions. This topic seems as if it does not have a lot to do with weapons used during the First World War, but I use this topic to kind of use an example and show how not all weapons are just guns. This example just shows different types of communication can be used as a weapon because it shows how just that type of telegraph directory was connected through 3 different countries such as Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. When 3 different countries can discuss things at one time without anyone else knowing, could definitely be a weapon, especially during a war. The next slide I have here are the effectiveness and the problems throughout the First World War. As you can see, I have a image of Germany's flag because Germany happened to have problems during the World War with their production and things of that nature. So lastly, I would like to talk about the problems and the problems and the effectiveness of weapons used by Germany during the First World War, as shown in some of these pictures. Germany was not able to deploy the weapons due to production problems. Due to these production problems, Germany had a hard time keeping up in the World War. But in the end, when they solved the problems, they got their weapons and they were very useful and effective for them during the World War. Despite these problems, World War I saw great technology advances and led to even further advances in World War II.